Welcome back to our Line Opinion panelists. Last week we reacted to the biggest state races in the primary election, but we want to focus on some of the influential local outcomes today. Otero County has inserted itself into the election discussion again too, prompting a lawsuit from the Secretary of State's office. We'll touch on that in just a minute here, but let's start with some of the contested races in the State House. 2 of 3 Democratic state lawmakers in local contested primaries prevailed. The only one who didn't is State Rep. Roger Montoya in Velarde. Former State Rep. Joseph Sanchez won the nomination in District 40. Mr. Sanchez got some support from outgoing House Speaker Brian Egolf, who vocally opposed Mr. Montoya leading up to the election. Julianne, how did that relationship sour? Something seemed to have gone off the track here a little bit.
You know, Gene, I'm not sure that I have enough insight into, kind of both sides of that relationship souring to really say.
Fair enough.
But I think from my conversations with Roger Montoya, I would say that he was really unwilling to play the little party games. If he felt like he needed to vote for or against something, he did that. If he felt like he needed to speak out, if there was a small thing that he just couldn't go along with, that's why he got crossways with Planned Parenthood. So I think that whole, what's the truth of the matter? You're not really going to know unless you are either one of those gentlemen. But I do think it's noteworthy also about this race. This district is a big geographical district. It's lots of Colfax County and Moore County, small pieces of Rio Arriba and San Miguel County. And so, of course, these voters were under duress, I think is a gentle way to say it. But this was one of the most high turnout legislative races we saw in New Mexico during the primary. There were nearly 5,000 votes. And while that doesn't seem like an astounding number of votes, there were other legislative contested races where there were just over 1,000 votes.
Right.
So, you have Sanchez winning by about 700 votes, 687 votes. And when you think about the scope of democracy, that really shows you that every person who hits the polling place matters.
Interesting points there. Rebecca, former New Mexico GOP chairman and oil man Harvey Yates backed several moderate Democrats in races against more progressive candidates. Of 8 candidates receiving money from Mr. Yates-backed groups, only 3 won. And I'm hesitating to say only 3. I mean, 3 won. That's not an insignificant number. But was it worth it for Mr. Yates if you were sitting in his shoes?
I think so. I mean, in recent years, we've seen big shifts from Republican incumbents in the House ousted by very progressive Democratic folks. And it's that, like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? If you're going to try to shift the legislature back, even to get it back to just moderate, then you got to just start investing one seat at a time. I think it's interesting too that he's not the only one that invested, that that Representative Lundstrom also invested in, and some of these other folks, for people like me who like right in the middle. I love it. I don't like extremes, period. And we saw how the extreme for Representative Dow did not work out in the gubernatorial primary. I just don't like extremes. I want people who can work together. And so this, I think, for me personally, is a step in the right direction.
Rebecca, let me stay with you. I'm so glad you mentioned Ms. Lundstrom in the kind of money she doled out. $5,000 to Mr. Sanchez, $3,000 to Mr. Martinez, and well as $2,000 to Roybal. I mean, that's money talks around here. What was behind all that?
Well, not only does money talk, like she talks. Like, did you see that she said that the reason she invested in those other candidates was because she was ticked off that these races, these incumbents had not worked with her on the hydrogen bill. And so she put $10,000 into races because it was like spite money.
Right.
So that is, wow. Like
it is kind of a wow. It really is. I mean, I've never heard it really. I'm sure it's happened, but this level of support, Tom, when you think about this, other legislators supporting it, actually committee chairman as well. I mean, this is not some backbench person. I mean, she has a lot of influence. Overall, what you're hearing from Mr. Yates and what we just talked about, What do you make of this, all this money sort of floating in and the results we're seeing here?
Well, the money flowing in, I think speaks to, people who want to bring the conversation back to the middle. New Mexico is a moderate state. And, lately it seems as if New Mexico has been going to the extremes on either side. And, the national narratives that we saw play out with respect to Roe v. Wade, as well as with the mass shootings, really called out the extremes in both parties, the progressives and the far right Trumpers and stuff. And so you had both of those who really kind of dominated the turnout and got their respective candidates elected. And I think we'll see in November whether or not that was a wise political move or a good emotional move for the different folks, because when you have so many people clamoring to get that middle conversation, it really gives a lot more benefit of the doubt to the moderate. And so now the big question is are the progressives and the Trumpers going to really focus on their own base, which of course they have to get their base out, or are they really going to try and reach towards the middle? And then what credibility do they have in those particular cases? So was Yates successful? Yeah, I mean, with Rebecca's thoughts, you bet. It was you got to do one, two, three at a time. Were the progressives successful? Absolutely. The moderates got mauled, as Joe Monahan said. So you really have the two extremes, which really carried the night as far as the narrative goes.
Interesting point there. Julianne, another developing headline, of course, I mentioned out of the primaries happening in Otero County. Tuesday, the Secretary of State's office filed a lawsuit against the county board after the commissioners there, 3 of them, refused to certify last week's results. And on Wednesday this week, the state Supreme Court ordered the commissioners to certify. How much damage does it do to the perception of an open democracy in this state when you have our representatives on national television shows on Wednesday night, talking about this?
I don't know that everybody in New Mexico would like to say Otero County represents our values, or that they are a marker of how successful our democracy, or how authentic and how much integrity our election process has. I don't know that a lot of people in New Mexico have even been to Otero County. But I think certainly it's not great for New Mexico to have the national press pay attention to this sort of, backward thing that happened. There again, I think it's a hat tip to Secretary of State Toulouse Oliver, who has had to really navigate through all of this questioning about the integrity of the election process. I was a reporter when New Mexico went back to paper ballots, and it was like this huge deal. When the hanging chads were happening in Florida, we were talking about how great our paper ballots were in New Mexico. So now it's 2022. We're arguing about whether there's a conspiracy with the voting machines, but I think it's really important to note that we still do have a verifiable audit, and that this is one county out of 33, and this is a county where one of the 3 county commissioners is really on a crusade to be recognized as an extremist. And
Absolutely. Rebecca, just got a minute and a half here. I want to get both you and Tom in real quick on your thoughts on this Otero County deal. I mean, anybody can just say, any commissioners can say at any point, I just don't believe in my heart these machines are doing the right thing. I'm waiting for someone to prove a point here about these machines. But is there a point to be made by distrusting these machines? What's being proven here?
I think there's probably just, they're still trying the same. You discredit something today so that you can still go back to the 2020 general presidential election. I think what's interesting to me is that Otero County was one of the flips where I believe that the more conservative candidate won by a very narrow margin, which would make me think that the Otero County board would be quick to act and certify the election and say, okay, now the more conservative Trump guy, now he's in. But they're not doing that, so I'm still perplexed.
Interesting point there. I had not thought about that angle. That's interesting. Tom, real quick, your thoughts on Otero County. I mean, again, forget the black eye for New Mexico. That's, who cares about that? Julianne sort of explained that. But for the county, people in the county themselves, how are they supposed to feel about this, that their vote suddenly doesn't count, literally, as far as their commission's concerned?
Yeah, well, and also the commission is going against the recommendation of the county clerk, who this is the county clerk's business.
That's
is
right.
certifying, making sure that it's a fair election. So it really kind of raises the narrative that we've all been talking about: is how do we reestablish trust in the electoral process? And that's not going to be solved in the short term. That's a long-term play.
Mm-hmm. Well, hopefully the Secretary of State, she won't have to keep going through the rounds of television. Amazing. Thank you to our line opinion panelists for that insight. We'll meet back here at the virtual roundtable in less than 10 minutes to talk through the potential progress on Capitol Hill when it comes to legislation on guns. But first, the impact of wildfires on wildlife. For more than 20 years, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and partner agencies have reintroduced Mexican wolves into the United States landscape. This year, the black fire ignited in the Gila National Forest during denning season, and it's impacting 4 wolf dens there. Maggie Dwyer is Deputy Mexican Wolf Recovery Coordinator with the service. This week, she talks with our land executive producer, Laura Paskus, about the Mexican wolf and their recovery effort.